You ready for Fat Grandpa one more time? Last time you saw me, you ended up putting the plywood. We plywood the roof. We put the roof on. These were the 6x6s. I wrapped them with rough sawn pine. I made all the beam work. Now, this is rough sawn pine. We wrapped this. The overhangs are actually made out of shiplap, which is a board with a tongue and groove in it. Now I put them vertically up and down with my fascia board on the outside and over here this way, and I ended up putting a vent. I'll show you the reason I put the vent inside, so you get an airflow. Now I put the house wrap on here. You're gonna see these red lines because what's gonna happen here is we're gonna be using the vertical siding. It's gonna go up and down like this, and we'll be able to nail it on these lines. This, of course, is gonna be all the way up. It's considered a shiplap look, and then you're gonna get this effect. Okay, so you're gonna have board and batten, I should say. This is board and batten. Shiplap is for the soffits. So you're gonna have these boards, and then they're put on here, and they're nailed to this, to here, and to here. And I put nailers inside for that reason. I'll show you. Now, some people say, okay, we're gonna buy some house wrap. You're gonna put Tyvek, Typar, tar paper, whatever you use for house wrap. This house wrap happens to have an oil on it, and it's made for wooden siding. Now, if they tell you that house wrap is house wrap, it's not true. If you're using vinyl siding, you can use whatever house wrap you want. But it's very important when you use wood to use the right house wrap. This has a little oil on it. It protects the wood. You start putting that plastic stuff up and the other stuff, this stuff will start cupping. And believe me, research that before you start siding your house. Now, you see these lines? You can come in here. I'm starting to insulate now, but I left this bay open. You see what I did here was I put nailers through this whole wall. One nailer here, one nailer there. I'll be able to catch the plate, a nailer, and the top. These nailers go all the way through, all the way around the house. So now, when I'm nailing the siding up, I got not just nailing it to plywood. I will be pinning this here. I'll be shooting this with a maze nail, an 8-penny maze nail, which is not decorative. And then in the middle, I'll be using like a trim gun, so you don't see the nail as much. And then the big nail is going to be covered by these, and it'll be all, done. Now, this is the rough sawn. This rough sawn was made, all these posts are made out of rough sawn. The overhangs, for instance, underneath, and now I got a porch ceiling to put up. This is going to be shiplap. I'll be working my way down. And after this is on, then I'll be able to put the siding on the front. The reason I didn't do the ceiling yet, I had all my electrical put in. I finally got my inspection. So now I can close this ceiling. And now if you notice, I started on the top with the shiplap. A lot of people would start on the bottom over here and start putting the ceiling in. As they're going up with their ceiling, when they get to the ridge, you're twisted. You can never get a nice cut like this. Never. So this actually works inside and outside. You want to start in the peak. Now, when I started in the peak, you get yourself a nice cut right down the middle. Boom, dead with your peak. Now, you're going to take a measurement from here to there. And then you're going to take another measurement from here to there to see where you're at. To make sure, if say for one instance, this is 90 inches, this is 90 and a half. Now you know where you're at. So as you're working down, when you get to here, you check again. Because the shiplap, you can actually move. You can don't just start now and then come down, because when you get to the end, you end up with a 3-inch piece to 4. It looks tedious. It just so you got as you're working down, don't just start shooting and nailing. You got to kind of watch yourself coming down, because you got leeway. When you're coming down here, when you get to this point, you check. You got 40 inches, say, and over here you got 40 and a quarter. Now you know to open this one up a little bit and close that one up. You know, don't wait till you get down here. It's too late, okay? So when this is on, and remember, what I told you about the house wrap, people say house wrap is house wrap. It's not. House wrap is not house wrap. I found this material, it's made for wood siding. It has an oil to it to protect the wood. Now, if you start thinking that plastic stuff behind there, it will warp the wood. Your paint, your stain will never hold. People, it's not true. Research that before whatever you're putting in. So now, you got your marks. You see how I trimmed this now. We're going to come around here. We're going to start digging into this old house. If you notice, this is a 2x8 fascia. This is all going to be ripped off. We're going to add the same chop. We're going to rip this off. It's going to turn to a 1x6. We're going to have the same look with the chop. When I say a chop, it's this look here. You're going to have a pork chop on here. The same look. The same vertical this way, vertical that way. And what I did was I ran these up and down, and these are going to be running this way. It's going to give us some character to this. When this is all done, you'll see. And then the shiplap will butt up into it. We'll have a nice freeze board up there. Okay, now I should have get more videos for you when I did the plywood. But plywood's plywood. We put it on the roof, plywood's on the wall, we put a window in. Now, if you come in here, I'm starting to insulate now. Now, I'm putting the insulation inside. This side is done. This side I'm working on. But I wanted to show you that I'm putting air baffles in here. I have to have my stick. These are air baffles that get the air through. Okay? These let the air go through. And what happens is when I get to the ridge, I cut them short. I don't let them touch the ridge. You want the air to flow through. Now, people will take insulation and start putting it up like this. After they put the baffles on, they tend to just put the insulation in the wall and start going. Okay? And they just staple and staple and staple and put with the paper. But what I do is I simply just cut a couple of scrap, fold them in half, and I put them here. Now, this vent goes down, it passes the wall by at least 6 inches. And those vents on the outside are what lets the air in. Because this is considered a cathedral ceiling. So you need an airflow to go through to keep moisture out. Okay? You don't want the house to sweat. So what I do, which a lot of people don't, I'll take this and I'll put this in here. And now I'm going to take my other insulation. When I come down to this wall, you never have an opening here. It's well insulated. Now you take your other insulation, you come down and you staple it. This wall, now over here I got a block. I'll be running blocks here for my siding. I got to do that yet, but with the reason it's not there yet, because I have a fan going in. I had to run a hot and cold. Now, this is an outside spigot, which is water. This is it's not used all the time. This is a summertime use. It has to be shut off in the wintertime. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to put a cold water in there because it could freeze. But what I'll do, before I insulate, I will be sticking, I don't have a piece here. I'll cut some insulation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, just where the water line is, I'll be putting water insulation above this. Where the water line is, here. I'll be putting a big piece between here. And then when I push this one, what happens is you don't want to just take an insulation now and push it here because you're pushing this to the cold. You're going to want to double insulate this. You're going to want to put insulation behind this from here to here, and then you take that one and push it. All right? And you rip the paper off. It's going to be a full piece. I should have pre-cut one for you to show you. And the same when I get here. When I get here, there'll be another one on the top, a little bit big, much bigger. Now when I push this one, this thing is actually, the insulation that you put here is not pushing it towards the cold. You're going to have this protected a little bit. But then again, this gets shut off every year. Just like you change your batteries in your smoke detectors and all. You've got to remember to shut the outside spigot off, otherwise it freezes. Unless you're in Alabama. But that's going to be it. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to finish insulating this. I don't know if I left anything out, but now you can see the finish. You see how I stuffed the end pieces in there? When you come down with this one, you don't have to worry about anything leaking out or anything like that. It's just a little extra protection. And now I simply strip the header. I strip the paper off of here. I'll be stripping the paper off of here, and then I put it to protect the header. Now, if you notice this one here, you got all your paper, your vapor barrel here. But if you notice this one here, it's got no paper on it. Well, what I did was, this happens to be the bay with all the wires and the home runs. See? Now, if I pull this down, I actually stripped this because this has multi-wires in here. So what I do is I strip it. You don't want to just take your insulation and push it in there like this one and bury all these wires because you're not going to get the right insulation. What you want to do is strip one, put it behind the boxes everywhere. In New York, if you put your hand in front of somebody's box, you can actually feel the cold air. Very important. I like putting insulation behind it. And then after I strip this, I put it in there. I take this one and I go back on top. I will be putting this back in and stapling it, but I left it out for you guys. Okay, and then you go back over this and then you leave this. I don't care for the paper. It's electric. It's hot. It's wires. God forbid, you never know. But not that you can't touch it with paper, but it is what it is. But now you get behind your boxes. Now, when I come over here, it's the same thing. Every wall that I insulated, before I put the insulation on top of this wall, I come behind here and I stick insulation behind the box. Because when you put this on there, like I said, you go in a lot of people's houses, you feel the cold air coming through the electrical box. They miss it. We'll be spray foaming. I will be spray foaming all the windows with this spray foam. Okay, now you got to use the right spray foam. There's certain spray foams for windows and doors. And what happens is you spray it. If you don't use the right one, it will stretch. It will bend your window. Your window won't not open. I'll find things like this. Over here, I spray the gaps. I can see daylight. I go around with the spray foam and we'll be pretty tight. I'll be closing that, and until then, I got to insulate. I don't know what I forgot for you guys, and I think we're getting it somewhere. I left you guys for a while. I should have showed you a little bit more. Came in late, but Fat Grandpa's still on. This is my weekend job. Okay? All right.